Well, my phone starts blowing up yesterday, about 6:35, 6:40. I'm getting ready to get the girls to bed. I was on solo dad duty last night. And, hey, Joe's doing a press conference, 6:45. Don't miss it. And I'm like, oh, gosh, here I go. I got to balance a 5-year-old, balance a 2-year-old. And after yesterday's disastrous report from special counsel Robert Hur, I'm thinking, what if this is it? What if Joe Biden is actually going to hang him up? Not just announce he's not running for re-election, but actually just say, I'm done. I'm stepping away. My mind started wandering in that direction yesterday. And frankly, I wish I was right with my mind wandering in that direction yesterday. Because we have seen for the last couple of years in particular, but it's gotten worse over the last few months, we have seen Joe Biden's mental acuity continue to slip. I don't say that to pound my chest. I don't say it to be someone who's doing cartwheels about it. I mean, as much as I disagree with the guy on most policy issues, it's also scary for the United States that the leader of the free world does not have it all together. And that's not debatable. I mean, I don't care if you're Jill. I don't care if you're Hunter. You can't make the case that the guy's all there right now. And then yesterday, what happens? Special counsel Robert Hur, in his report regarding Joe Biden's handling of classified documents, did say that Joe Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials. However, the reason the special counsel did not recommend charges was in part because a jury might view Joe Biden as an elderly man with a poor memory.
Come on, man.
Well, that's what he is. And the American people have seen this every single day. So last night, Joe does this press conference, and it gets announced it was not on the schedule. And I'm just wondering, gosh, what could it be? Because there's no way they would send him out there to defend himself as not being an elderly man with a poor memory when we see that elderly man with a poor memory every time he opens his mouth to the American people. They wouldn't put him up on prime time on a Thursday night to defend himself as being anything other than an elderly man with a poor memory. Well, that's exactly what they did. And here's how the conversation started off with our good friend, Pete Ducey of Fox News.
Thank you, and I'll take some questions.
President Biden, something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president. I put this country back on its feet. I don't need his recommendation. It's
How
totally
bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad I let you speak. That's
What?
Your memory has gotten worse, Mr. President.
My memory is not good. My memory is fine. My memory, take a look at what I've done since I become president. None of you thought I could pass any of the things I got passed. How'd that happen? I guess I just forgot what was going on.
Mr. President.
Voters have concerns about your age. How are you going to assuage them? And do you fear that this report is only going to fuel further concerns about your age?
Only by some of you.
Mr. President.
Only by some of you. That was Joe Biden responding to Peter Ducey of Fox News and some of the critics yesterday. Not even just journalists asking, questions that they should have been asking for the last 2 years. I don't know why it took a special counsel for them to suddenly start asking Joe about whether or not his mental acuity is all intact. Because anybody who's got a pulse and can think for themselves understands it's not. And by the way, that's not just to make a political statement. It's to point out that you have a leader of the free world, the most important person on the planet. And there are now written reports from special counsels saying he ain't all there. an elderly man with a poor memory. So I'm watching this last night, and I'm seeing Joe Biden fire back at Peter Doocy. And the thing has completely gone off the rails. I mean, he literally is trying to defend himself as not being a really old man with a really bad memory. And then he gets up there and he calls the president of Mexico the president of Egypt.
The conduct of the response in Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, has been over the top. I think that, as you know, initially, the president of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate to allow humanitarian material to get in. I talked to him. I convinced him to open the gate. I talked to Bibi to open the gate on the Israeli side.
He's talking about the president of Egypt, Sisi, but he calls him the president of Mexico, who is Obrador. The press conference last night confirmed what we all know and what Special Counsel Robert Hur wrote in his report, that Joe Biden is an elderly man with a poor memory. He literally got on stage in front of the American people, in front of the world, and proved the report accurate. And his people, Joe, I don't know who thought that was a good idea last night. That was political suicide. And it was the latest example of why, regardless of what party you like and who you want to see win in November, the prospects of this guy spending 4 more years in the White House as the leader of the free world is a completely untenable situation. It cannot continue. And I don't care if you were the biggest fanboy of the guy in 2020. You cannot look at what you watched last night with your own 2 eyes and sit there and say to yourself, yeah, America, the world, desperately needs 4 more years of that. The American people deserve better. Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, every single one of us deserve better than somebody who cannot put it together, who cannot string together coherent thoughts and sentences. And even when those sentences are put together, they're misnaming people left and right. It can't continue. America can't survive with this individual leading the way. And whether it takes a special counsel to confirm this for you, or it takes just, what you see, what you listen to, and what you hear every single day, I don't know. But the good news about this is that Joe Biden will forget about it by tomorrow. So that's the best I got for you as we close out the first segment here on KCMO. 612, it's so good to be with you as we get a Red Friday, the ultimate Red Friday, the final Red Friday underway here on KCMO Talk Radio. We're fired up. We got Kendall Gammon in an hour. Bill O'Reilly is going to be here at 8 o'clock to explain why he's rooting for the 49ers, which I'm still, come on, Bill. Come on, Billy boy, let's go. 8:05, Bill O'Reilly on KCMO, your big game program at 8:15. And yes, at 7:30, we have our friends at ITV News, the largest commercial broadcaster in the UK. They're going to be in this studio, and they're going to want to hear from you, the callers on KCMO, on how you would feel about Taylor Swift at some point this year endorsing Joe Biden. So that's going to be the conversation that if you ever wanted to go international, 7:30 this morning is your chance on the phones. All right, so let's get all set up for that. It's going to be a great morning here on 95.7 FM and 710 AM. And it also was a good day for the Donnie Boy yesterday. Not just because of Joe's issues, but because of what happened at the Supreme Court. We'll tell you about that and much more rolling through the morning on 95.7 FM. So as bad of a day as yesterday was for Joe Biden, it was a great day for Donald Trump. So yesterday, the Supreme Court is hearing this case as to whether or not Colorado can kick Donald Trump off the ballot this year because they determine he's an insurrectionist. And while we don't know the answer yet in terms of how the Supreme Court's going to come back on this deal, I mean, I think there's no doubt that it's going to get shut down. The Supreme Court is not going to let Colorado take Donald Trump off the ballot. The amount of chaos that would bring in this country, and not just in the short term, but in the long term, you might as well just, break the country up now. That's how bad it would be. But yesterday, the good signs were that you had some of the more liberal justices who were appointed by Democratic presidents who were at the Supreme Court yesterday and voicing extreme skepticism on this case. Here's Elena Kagan, appointed by Barack Obama, bringing up some very good points yesterday.
I think that the question that you have to confront is why a single state should decide who gets to be president of the United States. In other words, this question of whether a former president is disqualified for insurrection to be president again is, just say it. It sounds awfully national to me. So whatever means there are to enforce it would suggest that they have to be federal, national means. Why does, if you weren't from Colorado and you were from Wisconsin or you were from Michigan, and it really, what the Michigan Secretary of State did is going to make the difference between, whether candidate A is elected or candidate B is elected. I mean, that seems quite extraordinary, doesn't it?
No, Your Honor, because ultimately it's this court that's going to decide that question of federal constitutional eligibility and settle the issue for the nation.
By the way, this guy, I was listening a little bit yesterday, the attorney on behalf of the group in Colorado who's trying to keep Trump off the ballot. I mean, this guy is way in over his head. These Supreme Court justices on both sides of the aisle, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but, the ones who were appointed by Republicans versus the ones who were appointed by Democrats, they were running circles around this chump. So what this is all about, and the case that they're trying to make here, is that the 14th Amendment can keep Donald Trump off the ballot. Now, it's only been used to disqualify candidates 8 times since the 1860s, and the point of it was really to keep Confederates out of the U.S. government after the Civil War. I mean, that's the purpose of it. And now they're going to try to use it, and Colorado wants to use this 14th Amendment, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, to be exact, to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. And considering they're using that, and then they're also saying, well, he's an insurrectionist, despite the fact that whatever you feel about Donald Trump and whatever you think about January 6th, he was never even charged with what you're claiming he is. So right there, your argument completely falls apart. I may say that you are a murderer. I may think that you are a murderer. But if legally you have never been charged and convicted of murder, then I can't, in good faith, call you one. I mean, I can think you're one in my own mind. But when it comes to the rule of law and trying to put you in prison or keep you off of ballots or take away your right to vote, just because I think something and I believe something doesn't mean that in the rule of law, in the eyes of the law, it's true. Because the law has not proven any of that against Donald Trump. He has not been charged with any of that going back to January of 2021. So this thing, I mean, it is, and I believe that it was dead on arrival. And we talked yesterday to Jay Ashcroft about this, the Missouri Secretary of State, who was there in D.C. for the oral arguments. And I hope Jay got back in one piece. He got assaulted Tuesday night in Jeff City, and hopefully he got through D.C. okay. But, this is now one of these things where when you have Elena Kagan, an Obama-appointed Supreme Justice, pushing back pretty heavily and substantially on this Colorado case yesterday in the Supreme Court trying to keep Trump off the ballot, that's a good sign. The best thing that can happen, and I hope that it does happen, is that this comes back 9-0. That would be a statement from the Supreme Court. That would mean Elena Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, they all come back and they say, listen, We know what they feel. We know which way they lean. But the notion that a state is going to keep Donald Trump off the ballot is nuts, because you are really opening up Pandora's box then on both sides of the political aisle. Do you want to live in a country where if you're in a red state right now, let's say, you're in Missouri, which is red top to bottom. Kansas, not as much. But let's say you're in Missouri and you're a Democrat. If you want to see Trump off the ballot, well, be careful what you wish for. What if Missouri Republicans started taking Democrats off the ballot and they found some clause and they found some loopholes and technicalities that allowed them to keep Democrats off the ballot that they don't like? You want to talk about a banana republic? You could have that at the state level down to the local level. And that is a very dangerous precedent that potentially could get set here. So I'm not concerned at all about Donald Trump not being on the Colorado ballot. My question is just, does this break down along partisan lines, or can Chief Justice John Roberts make it so that they send a statement to the American people? And a 9-0 vote on this would be a statement to the American people that you're going to decide whether or not Donald Trump deserves another 4 years. Not us, not the Colorado State Supreme Court, not some attorneys general around the country who are looking for their own 15 minutes of fame and glory. No, you, the American people, are going to decide. It might be 8-1. I was worried it was going to break down along perceived partisan lines. But when I heard Ketanji Brown Jackson, Elena Kagan pushing back on it yesterday, I felt a lot better. Now I want 9-0. Not necessarily for Donald Trump, but for the well-being of this country. Because if it's done on partisan lines, here's what happens if Trump wins. People are going to scream that he was illegitimate from the get-go, that the Supreme Court broke down along party lines. Trump had 3 appointees on the Supreme Court, and they're the only reason that he's even in the White House in the first place and had a chance to run in the first place. That's a dicey proposition. So I'm hopeful that this thing works out, and then you and I get to decide who ends up becoming president of the United States. 913-408-7957. Little late to the game in Independence, don't you think? Just a little. I mean, I love you guys in Independence. We got a lot of great listeners in Independence. We have friends in the political circles in Independence at the state and city level who we love. But with the Royals set to announce their future location for a ballpark here in the next few days, is what it looks like. There was a meeting this week in Independence, and the city council meeting. City manager Zach Walker said they might propose the Independence Center location to the team. Anybody else? Anyone? While we're at it, who else wants to apply to have the Royals ballpark in your backyard? Come on, let's go.
Got Cable Dahmer Arena right there across the way. It's a sports complex with an interstate right through the middle of it.
That's right.
Got an entertainment district right there along 40 Highway, a quick trip, and you got all kinds of stuff over there.
What more do you need, right?
Yep.
I mean, I saw this story, and I thought, hey, guys, this would have been a great idea 2 years ago.
Maybe in September when they didn't make their original announcement target date, you might thought, we got time. We'll jump in now.
Yes.
That was a few months ago.
Yes. Or September when the Royals seemed very open to not being in downtown. And that's when, of course, Clay County became a thing. That would have been the time for Independence to say, we may have something here. Not literally in mid-February as the Royals, because of the fact that the ballot initiative is coming up in April and veterans can start voting next Friday, February 16th. Now's not the time to be like, hey, have you guys thought of independence? You realize, it's not just about liking a location. You then have to have studies and research done on that said location. The only chance for this Independence Center location to be an option is if the voters reject the April ballot initiative and the Royals go back to the drawing board, which I don't see happening. But that's the only way that this could even become an option. And at this point, you kind of just look ridiculous in Independence. Like, not that you shouldn't advocate for your own town or your own city, but it makes you look so out of touch and so confused and so misunderstanding of the entire process and the timelines to just out of nowhere be like, I got a great idea. And the Royals are like, where you been for the last 18 months? To even go public with this is frankly kind of embarrassing. And it's just annoying, too. It's like, you and your wife decide on where you're going to go to dinner. And then as you're pulling out of the driveway, hey, I know we decided on, Johnny's, but I was really thinking we should probably go here instead. And then she just gets pissed because you guys talked about it. You came to a decision, and then you're throwing in these, curveballs at the last minute. Like, no one likes that. Just look like a clown. And that's what this is over in Independence. I was like, no, you can't be serious. You guys, I love you in Independence. But you can't literally be asking the Royals days before their announcement, which they've been working on for, at this point, years, to look at this site in Independence. There's just no way, John.
The one nuance in it, and I didn't realize because I wasn't paying attention, is apparently the property is for sale. So I don't know if that made this all kick up, was the catalyst for the sudden announcement or not.
Well, interesting. Maybe that's it.
Maybe
they're just like, gosh, let's take a Hail Mary here.
Yeah.
See what we can do.
Right.
It might be nothing more than that, but still.
A mall for sale.
Yeah.
That's not news, right? Not unique to Independence.
No, not at all. But like the guys up in Clay County told me, the Royals were studying that site, but you got to do like soil studies. You got to figure out how much you can build, how much weight you can put on a plot of land. It's not like, oh, yeah, that's a good site. I never thought of that. Let's go there. Like there's studies that have to be done that take months to complete. Soil studies, location studies. You got to have your architects come in and make sure that, the location works for on-ramp, off-ramp, parking, all those things. It's so much more complex than even I'm explaining it right now. So I love you guys in Independence, but man, that ain't happening. But I think we'll have an answer, I would say, by next Friday. The Royals are going to have an answer on where they want to be, either in the East Village or on the south side of the downtown loop where the Kansas City Stars old building is. I'm guessing I don't think they're going to announce it on Friday. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I bet you we get a Thursday announcement. That would be the day after the parade. Build off of the hype of Kansas City. Bobby Witt signs his $300 million deal this week. I bet Thursday's the day. If they don't win the Super Bowl on Sunday, the Chiefs, then I could see the Royals doing this on Tuesday or Wednesday to try to say, hey, we got to the Super Bowl, but now we got this going on. Woo! But they're not going to do it Tuesday, Wednesday if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl because Wednesday's the parade. And I did see that Olathe is going to have school on Wednesday no matter what. So good for them. I know some schools are going to be canceling, but Mark broke that yesterday, that Olathe will be in school on Wednesday if they win. And frankly, that's how it should be. If you want to take your kid out, fine. But you know what? The school should be open and the kid should be in school that day.
And it's just a half day because they have conferences on Thursday, Friday.
Wait, why is there a half day on Wednesday if they have conferences on Thursday, Friday?
Because they have the conferences Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, they do have Wednesday afternoon? Yeah. Okay. All right, fine. You're telling me you can't fit the conferences on 2 days? Come on. Really?
Yeah, it's kind of lame.
Do we need a half day? I mean, these kids are never in school anymore. It's I know the weather is the weather.
A little bit more to talk about with each individual, I think, nowadays, perhaps.
Maybe that's it. Are you going to go to the parent-teacher conference, Mark? You going to make sure the kids are keeping in line there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We got signed up. We got our time slot on Sign Up Genius ready to go.
All right. Mark's all fired up. He's ready. Keep those kids in line there, Mark. Don't let them get out of line with the new baby in tow. All right? Now, in Independence, some sad news that we wanted to update you on. The 8-year-old girl, Tiller Dildine, died yesterday after that crash earlier in the week that was blamed on a pothole on East 23rd Street Traffic Way near Stark Avenue. That crash happened around 5 p.m. on Monday, and this 8-year-old, Tiller Dildine, was one of 3 people injured in the wreck. Her mother is still in the hospital right now. She had been on life support for the last few days after the crash, but multiple tests this week showed no brain activity. And she was declared dead on Thursday morning. She will be an organ donor. The family has set up a GoFundMe for Tiller's mother, who's also hospitalized right now with a potentially broken pelvis and other health issues. And the driver of the other vehicle involved in the crash, F-150, was in critical condition immediately following it. So this ties back to, if you haven't seen this video on some of the local news stations, I mean, this pothole is a crater. They finally now have cones up around it. But, you know, a lady was on Fox 4 earlier in the week and said that she hit that same pothole and tore up her tires. And she called 311. She called MoDOT, and they're like, oh, yeah, it might take 60 days, 6-0. Finally, they've got cones up around that thing. But I'm telling you, these potholes can be deadly, as we saw earlier this week. And now it's cost the life of an 8-year-old girl from Independence. So please be careful as you're walking around, as you're, driving around town and doing what needs to be done and getting around. But there are potholes all over the place. And yes, they can cause these kinds of deadly crashes. So our prayers go out to that family. The mother right now is, of course, still in the hospital. And we'll share the GoFundMe on our social media channels as well. We'll do that here shortly on KCMO. We are 45 minutes away from ITV News, UK-based broadcast company that wanted to come out here to Kansas City to record a part of our show and hear from you, the callers on KCMO Talk Radio, about how you would feel regarding a potential Taylor Swift endorsement of Joe Biden. So if you ever wanted to go international, if you ever wanted your thoughts, your opinions, your voice to extend beyond Kansas City and KCMO, 7:30 this morning is your chance. We are going to line up those phone calls, and you are going to have your voice heard across the world this morning, right here on 95.7 FM. And I will say this as well. I got this big old sty I woke up with on my eye. So I literally can't see out of my left eye. It's quite a look. I haven't had something like this in my life. So I'm ready for TV. I'm ready to make my international debut with a sty on my eye, the size of a quarter. I can feel it right now. It's brutal. But, hey, you're going to carry that segment. They didn't come out here to hear from me. They came out here to hear from you at 7:30. All right? So I'm fired up for that. Next, it's the entire issue with reparations. Who pays? Who gets it? And this great example from one of our favorite, and I say that tongue-in-cheek, daytime talk shows is exactly why this issue is so much more complex and ridiculous than people give it credit for. We'll tell you why coming up on 95.7 FM, KCMO. So our friends from the UK are here, and we're all in red, and Mark was entertaining them during the break, and they're wondering why we're wearing red. Is that right, Mark? Or they wanted some answers?
Oh, they knew why we were wearing red.
Oh, okay.
He said, it's a Chiefs Day. I was like, so I explained Red Friday to him.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
When in Rome, they wondered if they should have had red on, but you could be for the Niners wearing red, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah, blend in.
Did you guys put on your little British accent when you talked to them?
I just spoke normally to them, but they had nice accents.
They have nice accents? Okay.
One of the guys said that he should get some Chiefs merch. So I said, yeah, might as well.
Nice work there, Mark. All right. Well, I'll meet him here at the top of the hour when we have a few minutes. But remember, these folks are here from the UK. They came all the way over to hear from you, this KCMO Talk Radio audience, and get the feedback on how you would feel if Taylor Swift ends up endorsing Joe Biden in 2024. So if you ever wanted to go international, 7:30 this morning is when the phones are going to be lighting up, and you're going to have a chance to talk to me. But, of course, the audio is going to be grabbed by this ITV News out of the UK. They're the largest commercial broadcaster in the UK. So it is great to be here on a Red Friday. Yeah, we're all in our red. We're all fired up for the game on Sunday. But I'm also fired up because of this clip I heard yesterday on The View. No, I don't spend my middays watching The View, but this was a good viral moment yesterday. You know how when we talk about reparations, it's not as simple as like, hey, depending on who your great-great-great-grandfather was or who your great-great-great-grandmother was, you either deserve reparations or you potentially have to pay reparations. It's just not that simple. We are a melting pot in this country. We're talking generations back. It's not as easy as people want to make it to be. It's not as black and white, no pun intended, as people want to make it to be. We have people from different parts of the world who are first-generation Americans. Do they deserve? Do they have to pay their tax dollars into some reparations pool? Why? And this was a great example of the absurdity of reparations. Sunny Hostin is one of the hosts of The View. She is half Puerto Rican, half black. She has been a big proponent of reparations for a very long time. Well, yesterday she found out on the air that on her mother's side of her family, they were slave owners. I kid you not.
Talk about a bombshell.
Let's roll the tape.
You know, I was really reluctant. I don't know how you felt when you did it, Whoopi, but I was really reluctant to do it because I just sensed that there could be something in my family history that would be disappointing. Negative, yes. I thought I was going to have that kind of moment. And Skip had asked me to do it for a long time. And I finally decided to do it because I thought it'd be helpful for my children and my children's children to know what their real history was, you know. But what I found out was that my mother's family, while they are Puerto Rican, they actually originate from Spain. And the reason that they moved to Puerto Rico is because the slave trade had been sort of canceled in Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I have been told that they were printers and journalists, but they were in fact enslavers. And my mother so
a hush fell over the audience.
It was deeply disappointing.
I was told they were printers and journalists, but it turns out they were enslavers. Now, they were enslavers in Puerto Rico, so this brings up an excellent example of the absurdity of this whole thing. So, you know, Puerto Rico's an American territory. However, you look at the situation now and you say, what does that mean for Sunny Hostin? Half Puerto Rican, half black, proponent of reparations. However, she is now readily admitting that there are members of her family who owned slaves. So how does she factor into this equation? Right? Even if she's got her father's side of the family, who, yes, had prior generations going back 150 years ago, who may have dealt with slavery and suffered under slavery. This is why the question is so complex. And it's not as simple as people want to make it out to be. But Sunny made sure to go on the air after she admitted that her family lineage includes owning slaves and said she's still a big fan of reparations. Don't you think otherwise?
At first, I was deeply disappointed.
The slave thing is a bummer.
It's a bummer.
That's a real bummer.
I still believe in reparations, by the way, so y'all can stop texting me and emailing me and saying that I'm a white girl and that I don't deserve reparations. I still believe that.
Someone did that to you?
Yeah.
I don't know who sent her a thing telling her she was a white girl.
Okay, it's too much, people.
But clean off your television screen.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I still believe in reparations. I still believe this country has a lot to do in terms of racial justice. But what I will say, Sarah, to your question is that I feel that I'm enriched by knowing that history. I'm enriched, and I'm enriched by knowing that my family has come so far from being enslavers to my mother marrying my father in 1968.
Well, yeah. So now you get to check off but I'm sufficiently woke, therefore it's A-okay for me to go down the road of still being pro-reparations, despite the fact that I have slave owners in my family. I'll tell you right now, because my dad is done. I mean, he's, kind of nerds out on this stuff. This family lineage, 23andMe, all that. I can tell you right now, I'm white, in case you didn't know.
Talk about a bombshell.
And I don't have any slave owners going back to either side of my family in Ireland or in Italy as half Italian and half Irish. So I would theoretically be someone who would have to pay in to a theoretical reparations. And then Sonny Hostin, who, by the way, has a much larger net worth than I do, and also has family lineage that includes slave owners, she would be the recipient of potential said reparations. Is that not beyond absurd to you? Because it is to me, and I would say any common sense thinking person.